laughing at myself because this happens to me all the time when I'm sitting here waiting and then I start doing something and then I'm running late. It's the story of my life. Nevertheless, Sawubona to you. I always greet now. Now that I've learned this word, I'm always interested in greeting us in the spirit of oneness. And this Zulu tribal greeting allows us to do that because what Sawubona asks us to consider is if we are willing to see all of y'all who are present in front of us. And we use plural pronouns on purpose because when I show up, I do not show up on my own. I show up with the whole of my ancestry because I carry in my cells their movements, their thoughts, their feelings, their pains, their sorrows, their joys, their celebrations. All of that is wrapped up in who I am. And I have been shaped and molded by those things. And the same can be said for you. So when you show up, I'm not just looking at you, I'm looking at the whole of who you are with all of that, all of who you bring and hold and carry with you. And so Sawubona says, are we willing to give people the space that they need to bring their whole selves? Because if we're going to be honest about what it means to be human, it means that we are complex. It means that we are nuanced. It means that we are not just black or white. And I don't mean race. I mean, we are not one dimensional, but we are multifaceted. We are three-dimensional. We are alive and growing and evolving. And so there's so much that makes up who we are, and we don't want to deny any part of it, nor should we be asked to, nor should we have to. Instead, we've got to figure out how to move and shift and evolve with all of what we hold. And so the spirit of Sawubona is a spirit of oneness that says, yes, I want you to bring all of your whole selves to me, and I am going to offer my whole self to you, and together let us love in the spirit of humanity. And I do think that at some point we'll have to define what it means to love one another, but that's not what's on tap for tonight. Tonight, we are talking about faith for all that is rooted and grounded in the pericope selected from 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 through 23. If you are joining us for the first time, or if you just need a reminder, here we are at the Good Fight, which is an outgrowth of Just Talk Consulting. Just Talk Consulting is my own consulting firm where we really believe that if we are going to realize a world where we are more just, more equitable, more inclusive, more peaceful, then we have got to learn how to live and love differently, because the way that we have been living and loving is not working. It continues to fail us day after day after day. So we've got to renew, we've got to reimagine what it means to exist together as human and to see us as human, and not just humans, because I am on this evolutionary journey of about making sure that I am including the whole of creation, which yes, includes dogs. So I'm trying to get there. I am yet on my way. And so Just Talk Consulting is what makes this conversation possible. And so when you are here in this space, if it is your first time in this space, or even if it is not, and sometimes I forget to express my gratitude for those of you who do not show up live. I know that you are showing up during some other time in your life. I know it. There are so many different ways that I know it, but I know it. And I would be remiss if I did not let you know how that touches me on such a deep level, to know that even when we have clicked the end broadcast button, that doesn't mean that the conversation does not continue to live and live in ways that enlighten and inform and inspire and motivate and even challenge and frustrate and anger people, because all of those feelings are valid and I receive them in this space, and I have no problem engaging them. So thank you for those of you who show up live. and for those of you who show up and watch and listen at some other time. But if you are joining us on tonight, there are different ways that you can engage with this conversation. One of the ways that you can engage is to see yourself reflected in a mirror, where something is said and you know for a fact. It's like sometimes when you go, for those of you who are church folks, and you've experienced sermons where you walk out and you feel like the pastor was talking directly to you. Or sometimes you are, even when you go and have your palms read, you're like, how you didn't even give this information, you didn't even give away anything in your body, and yet the person who was reading your palm touched something, and you know that they had. How in the world could they possibly have known that? Like, you feel like they know you, like they've seen you, like this resonates with you, they're familiar with you. And so something can happen in this space to give you that feeling of being seen and being heard and being known without your permission, really. It's just one of those things that happens. And in some cases, it feels really good. And in some cases, it is challenging because we continue to hide ourselves from our own selves, because the heart is wicked and deceitful, according to the text that many of us call the Bible, that we revere so greatly, some of us. Another way that you can engage with the good fight on tonight is to look through a window where somebody else's story is centered in the space. This is not a story that you understand necessarily. It's not a story that you have heard before. It is not a story that you are familiar with, but yet you receive it as the gift that it is. Someone is giving you an opportunity to have a glimpse into their heart, their soul, their mind, their spirit, their opinions. And we simply sit back and say yes to the opportunity to hear, because being a listener is an important thing, and being a conscious listener is even more important. And what's the difference? A conscious listener says, I'm listening to hear you, period. I'm not listening to hear, wait for an opportunity for me to jump in and tell you what I think. I'm not listening to determine whether or not I think what you're saying is true. I'm not listening to determine whether or not I feel like I'm about to challenge you because I think you haven't thought about this piece that I know. I am simply allowing you to speak, and I'm giving myself over to the space so that whatever you say can do a work in me, whatever that work is, whether I recognize it or not. A third way that you can engage in the space is to walk through a door. So beyond this moment, we are still talking. You are sending me emails and TikToks and podcasts and articles and sharing conversations. You're sending me text messages and Facebook messages, and you are calling me on the phone. You are emailing me. We are still having conversations beyond this moment. So that is what I mean by walking through a door. And you can show up as one who comments on the page. Now you can comment on my YouTube channel, Just Talk with Dr. Denise, and it's W with the slash. The YouTube channel is live. I'm supposed to say stuff like it, subscribe, and like. I can't ever remember to say that because I'm not in the groove of it yet. But yes, you can do those things with the YouTube channel. You can show up right here in this space on Facebook, and you can, either way, whether you are on YouTube or whether you are on Facebook, you can send a comment. And now StreamYard allows me to show that comment so everybody can see what it is that you are saying in this space. So those are the ways that you can engage with the good fight on tonight. Or you can engage by showing up to watch and not doing any of those things. You don't have to find yourself. You don't have to locate yourself. You don't have to center yourself. You don't have to center anybody else. You can simply engage by being present. And your presence is more than enough. More than enough. There's a song. You are more than Jehovah, yeah, Jireh, my provider. You are more than enough for me. Yeah. I'm searching for that kind of relationship with my God, to know that you're more than enough just for me being in relationship with you. Not because I go to church, not because I claim I'm a Christian, not because I give my tithes, not because I design a sermon, not because I show up for the potluck, not because I give to the food pantry, not because I do anything, but just because you are and I am. Together, we are more than enough to do whatever it is that we need to do to represent God in a way that is felt by people as we fight for collective liberation. That is what I mean by being more than enough. I might sing that at church this Sunday. I got to sing at church Sunday, y'all. I don't mean the special music, but just singing. Yeah, yeah. And that reminds me, last week I forgot to ask you. I got all caught up in my own thoughts about the awesomeness of God. There was this one moment that we were talking last week, and I said that there are a couple of times when I stand in awe for sure, as I think about God. And one is when I see a pregnant person. The other one is when I see a bird's nest. Like, I am just fascinated by those two instances that of the presence of God among us in ways that I don't experience all the time. But as soon as I see those two things, I know there is a God. But I failed to ask you, like, how do you, what are those moments in your life what is that time? What happens? What do you experience when you feel like, yes, there is a God, like that you stand in awe, you recognize the awesomeness of God? And I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to that. I just didn't even think about asking that question last week, because like I said, sometimes I get so caught up in what I'm saying and what I'm thinking that I'm just kind of like, just, I don't know, full speed ahead, and I need to slow down at times, and I realize that. So if you want to share that, feel free. And again, you can share it on any platform. Some people do not like to show up in public spaces, and that is okay. You can share it anytime. But tonight, I want to talk about kind of an extension of a conversation that I've been having, and kind of not. I see you, Low Hotep. I was just asking the question about God. Those of us who feel like there are times when we know that we know that we know that there is a God and that God is awesome. Like, what happens? How does God show up for you to say, oh my goodness, I know that God is awesome? I was asking people that question. But earlier today, I was having a conversation about what we are teaching our children, and how is it possible, challenging us to ask the question, how is it possible for us to teach children that which we do not know? And in order for us to position ourselves as the very best educators for our children, for the next generation, for our community, because some people have this idea that since I don't have children, then conversations about children don't include me, and that is false. Some people think that if I don't have children that are in the school system, then whatever's happening in the educational arena doesn't include me, and that is false, because children are members of our community, and our community is made up of all of us as neighbors, as siblings, as ones. And so this spirit of Sawubona that calls us to oneness requires that we show up in all spaces for all people, because our liberation is tied together. And so I was asking this question: if we are going to be the educators of children, if we are going to be those that leave a legacy, if we are going to be those that train children up, if we're going to be those that inspire and motivate and pour into the lives of children, what is it that we're pouring into them? And what is it that we should be pouring into them that we are not pouring into them? And why can't we pour it into them? And in many cases, it's because it's not in us. So then how do we, first of all, see ourselves to know that what my hope is for children, that they will come to know and learn? I must, first of all, embody. And if I am not embodying it, then I need to do that work. I need to do the work within myself to say, oh my goodness, let me see me. Help me see me. Sometimes that could be the prayer. And when I talk about prayer, I talk about simply a conversation with somebody that you believe is bigger than you that can help you. And so prayer to me doesn't follow any particular formula or structure. It doesn't have any particular language. It does not have to be addressed to any particular personification, personified God. It doesn't have to have any of that. It's a conversation from your soul and from your heart that's either audible or inaudible that you express through some way, whether you express it in writing, whether you express it through song, or you express it through words, you express it through art, you express it through dance, you express it through nature, whatever that is, then then our prayer is, help me see me. And most of the time we can see ourselves better when we are in relationship to other people, with other people. So those of us who think we don't need anybody, somebody has hurt our feelings, or a relationship has damaged our hearts. We are heartbroken because we've lost a relationship, and then we decide, I'm never going to be in relationship again. I'm never going to be friends again. I don't need that. That's the wrong approach, because we were created to be relational. We were created to be communal. So when we are in relationship with other people, that's when we begin to see ourselves even more clearly. And that's when we begin to hurt even more, because we are sad about what our reflection through the other person's eyes shows us. But there's good news always, because we can change that. As a matter of fact, here's a perfect opportunity for me to pull up this quote that I have from Cole Arthur Riley. Cole Arthur Riley is the author of This Here Flesh, and I am just enamored with what she says, what she writes, how she feels, her philosophies, her theologies. And I pulled this quote. I didn't know when I was going to use it or if I was going to use it, but I think that this is an appropriate time. And here's what Cole Arthur Riley says during one of her Black liturgies. You do not have to be who you've been. You can think differently, feel differently. Don't let anyone nail you to a selfhood that no longer belongs to you. Tell the truth about who you are today. I love the words when she says, don't let anyone nail you to a selfhood. And so I think about that, like immediately I had this imagery of Christ being nailed to the cross. And so I think about those folks who are Catholic for sure, where when you go to their churches, when you see the crosses that they have on their necks, Jesus is still there. Like Jesus is still crucified, has not risen. And I think that that's an interesting way to think about who Jesus is in the context of Christianity. And so when I thought about this language that she uses, don't let anyone nail you to a selfhood. You don't have to be stagnant. You can grow, you can evolve, you can reimagine, you can re-envision. Like your life can be revolutionary in that it never ever accepts what has been forever, but it allows us to breathe, right? It allows us to be flexible. And so we can change, we can examine ourselves, we can see ourselves reflected, and we can be sorrowful for what we learn about ourselves. And then we can go and do the work of changing it and being transformed, being renewed in our minds and in our bodies and in our souls. And so I was thinking about what it is that we are teaching our children and what is it that we know. And it made me, that's what I was thinking about on one level. But then I was talking to someone and I heard myself say that this is what my daddy taught me. And so I stopped for a moment. Well, after the conversation was over, I began to sit and think about, again, the complexities of being human. Because if I talk about my dad, if I'm going to be honest with you and talk about my dad, there are so many things that I could say about him that are negative. There are so many experiences, so many stories that I can share that are hurtful and harmful and tragic. And yet there are so many other stories I can share about about the things that I learned, the times that we laughed, the places that we visited, all of that. And he is all of those things at one time. And all of those things deserve attention at a certain time and in a certain space. But one of the things that my dad taught me was that when you become a driver, because this was when I was learning how to drive, and he said, you have to drive for everybody on the road. You are not on the road by yourself. You can't just pay attention to your own lane. You have to pay attention to what is happening all around you, because you've got to be careful to make sure that you make a move if you have to, based on the move that another person makes. It's not even about you, it's about them. And so I was thinking about that. And then I was trying to find a scripture that would help me illustrate what I meant when I sent out the flyer that says tonight's topic is faith for all. Because I was thinking about being a driver. I have to drive for everybody when I'm on the road. And one of the scriptures that came to mind when I began to think about what it means to be this driver for all people. I'm going to drive for everybody. I'm going to become what every person needs me to become. Really, at the end of the day, honestly, I'm trying to protect myself on the road. But I realize in order to protect myself, I've got to do things to help maintain your safety as well. So I'm looking out for all of us while I'm trying to reach my projected destination. And so I pulled this scripture from 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 through 23. And it is the easy to read version. That's the translation that I'm going to use for tonight. And it's only because that's my go-to. I love it. It's my favorite version, translation of the Bible. And so I'm using it on tonight. There's some language in it that I'm going to talk about in just a minute that caused me to look for other translations because I wanted to substitute the word. And then I thought better about it. And I said, no, let's tackle it. Let's challenge it. And so I want to read these words to you as we think about what it means to be one who has to be the driver for everybody on the road. I'm on the road because I'm headed to a destination and I want to make sure that I arrive safely, but I cannot focus only on my own driving skills, even though I am a skilled driver. I have never caused an accident a day in my life, and I've been driving since before I had a permit. That's illegal, but that's the case. I was driving before I actually had any official authorization to drive. And in all the time that I have been driving, I've never caused an accident. And so one would say you're a skilled driver. Oh, and I remember Lo saying, I could say I'm an expert driver. And Lo's like, wait, be careful with that word expert. But it's not about how much skill I have. It's not about how adept I am with driving. It's about how much of a team driver I am, how much of a one who is willing to see beyond just my rear view mirrors. Because sometimes I have to turn my head. I know they say you're not supposed to, but sometimes I do, because we got blind spots and all kinds of things happening, and we have to be aware and ultra sensitive to what's going on. So with that sourcing, with that grounding in mind, I want you to hear these words that are found in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 through 23. And I do have them for the screen today. So I'll put them up on the screen so that we can read them together. Again, it is the easy to read version of the Bible. And if there are some of you, if there's people that have you prefer a different version, like I'm open to that. Like I got all kinds of Bibles. I'll read from anything, whatever helps us to understand better. So here's 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 through 23. This is Paul talking. I am free. I belong to no other person, but I make myself a slave to everyone. I do this to help save as many people as I can. To the Jews, I become like a Jew so that I could help save Jews. I am myself am not ruled by the law, but to those who are ruled by the law, I became like someone who is ruled by the law. I did this to help save those who are ruled by the law. To those who are without the law, I became like someone who is without the law. I did this to help save those who are without the law. But really, I am not without God's law. I am ruled by the law of Christ. To those who are weak, I became weak so that I could help save them. I have become all things to all people. I did this so that I could save my people in any way possible. I do all this to make the good news known. I do it so that I can share in the blessings of the good news. Those are the words that Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 through 23. Actually, I shouldn't say those are the words that Paul writes. We are learning more and more and more about the Bible. And we know that there are so many instances where we attribute words to people, even Jesus, even God, that they never spoke, that they never wrote. We have taken it upon ourselves to push our own agenda through access and power that we gain from some opportunity or another, whether it is through the identity of race, whether it is through the identity of gender, whether it is through the identity of status, whatever it is that gives us an opportunity to control the pen. We have used it in ways that are not truthful and honest, but are actually deceitful and painful and dehumanizing at times. So I shouldn't say that these are the words that Paul wrote or spoke, but these are the words that we have given to Paul, and then we have allowed ourselves to believe and to say that they are from Paul. Now, some of them may very well be, but how do we really, really know? And so these are those words that we have attributed to Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. So Lowe says, let me put it up on the screen. My idea about this scripture is Paul will become whatever he needs to be to convert an individual. That's exactly what Paul is saying. Whatever I have to do to convert you to Christ, to get you to come to know Jesus the way I have come to know Jesus, to get you to understand that Jesus is Lord, Jesus is our Christ, Jesus is the Messiah, Jesus is the Savior, Jesus is our deliverer, our rescuer, Jesus is our link, our mediator between us and God. Jesus is the one who draws us together. Yes, that is the whole point. But let's talk about that for just a minute. Like Paul had, that means that I'll be whatever you want me to be because I have an agenda. So I'm trying to cozy up to you. I'm trying to schmooze with you. I'm trying to get you on my side because I want you to be who I want you to be. I want you to come into an existence that I believe is better for your life than what you have going on now. So I'm not genuinely interested in you. I'm not genuinely interested in being your friend. I'm not genuinely interested in being your story. I only want to get close enough to execute my agenda because I've got a mission and a purpose in mind that includes you being converted to Jesus Christ. And so, yes, I absolutely believe that's what Paul is trying to do. And I believe many of us do that. I used to do that. I used to have a quota. When I say a quota, they didn't really give us a quota, but we used to have to fill out these forms. I think pulpit pastors still do in the United Methodist Church, and a United Methodist pastor I'm active as a United Methodist pastor, but I am one who has been I'm one who is assigned to ministry beyond the church. So I'm not in the pulpit. So I don't have to fill out the same forms that pulpit pastors do. But there's a form that you have to fill out every single year where you are declaring how many people you discipled, how many people you brought into the fold, how many people received salvation under your watch for that year. So you have to fill that out. And there's a certain pressure that comes along with having to say zero. And so we are always trying to figure out ways that we can get those numbers up. If it's 1 this year, in 3 years, we need to at least double or triple that number. Because some of us used to try to like quadruple the number in a year. And then you go to a class and you learn that that's not possible. And so all of this talk, all of this energy around how many people can we get? How many people can we get? How many people can we get? And so it sounds to me through this text that Paul is operating under that same pressure. Like, I need to get more people to come to know Christ, not because I have to fill out a form, but because there's something on the inside of me that's motivating me to believe that your life is not right unless you have Christ. And that in itself is part of this conversation about faith for all. How big is our faith? Big enough to allow other people an opportunity to drive in their lane, and not just drive in their lane, but to make room for them to drive in their lane. So here's this what used to be, it is not anymore, but what used to be the most frustrating experience that I would have on the highway is when we would reach this, when this happens right here. Have you ever seen this sign? Right? This is the sign where you know that people are coming onto the highway. So the arrow that is going, that is facing upward, this arrow that's straight up and down, this is the arrow for those of us who are already driving on the highway. We are already in the lane. We are already in motion. But this little tail that we see on the right side, this little tail that we see is an indicator that there's somebody that's not in our lane who's about to enter the highway, and they're going to enter into the space that we are in. Now, we're already in motion. We're already in this lane, and yet there's a sign that tells us, hey, if you see anybody coming in on this right side, you need to know that they are coming in to where you are. You have to make a decision about what you are going to do, because you will no longer be occupying this lane by yourself. You probably weren't occupying it by yourself anyway, but in this moment, it feels like you're the only one here, because here this person comes. And when this person is on their way to merge onto the highway, you've got to do something. Either you've got to speed up so that they'll have an opportunity to get in behind you, or you've got to slow down in order for them to get in front of you. Now, it's dangerous to slow down on the highway. You definitely don't want to stop. So it's better for you to keep moving. But if you keep moving, then wait a minute, you might not give them room. Now they might have to stop, and then that's gonna back up their lane. You know, like, it's all kinds of things that could happen. So what's easier to do is to move over. Instead of slowing down or going faster, let me move over in order for this person to be able to merge into the lane that I'm already in. But what happens most of the time? I don't want to say most of the time, but a lot of the time. When I look over to my left and I want to get over, I can't, because it's somebody driving in this lane. Somebody who's not paying attention to what's happening 2 lanes over. This is a lane where people have to merge. In order for them to merge, I need to get out of the way. In order for me to get out of the way, I need you to get out of the way. So everybody has to be moving in tandem so that the person who's not yet on the road can find a spot. And that sometimes has been the most frustrating thing, because the person comes and they want to enter, and then they're not going the speed limit, because you're supposed to enter the lane going the speed limit so that you can get on into the flow. Just come on over into the flow. But they're scared because people not stopping, people not moving. Some people going to... And I find myself not just talking to the person who's trying to merge, but yelling at them and asking, like, what are they doing? Like, I don't have a gun that I'm going to pull on anybody because they are taking too long to merge. I'm not going to roll down my window and cuss at them. I am not going to flip them the bird because they can't seem to figure out how to get in this lane. I'm not going to ruin my day. Like the rest of my day is not going to be ruined because I had this moment where this person was struggling to merge onto the highway. Like none of that is going to happen. But sometimes I'm like, what are you doing? Get over! Come on! And so I'm thinking about that as a larger conversation for this space that we are in, about diversity, equity, and inclusion, where we're talking about having a world that is more peaceful, where we realize that those of us who are already in the lane, in this case, we are people of faith. And I'm not talking about people of faith in Jesus. I'm talking about people that believe that there's a higher work, that there's a higher something happening. There's a higher vibration to which we can attain if we center ourselves and focus ourselves, mind, body, soul, and spirit. So there's a higher vibration that we want to operate on. And so we want to make sure that we are sending those vibrations out into the world so other people can feel the positivity, other people can feel the goodness of what we are offering to them in this space. So we're already in this lane. We've already assessed ourselves and realized these are the types of people that we want to be. So we are already in motion. And there are people who long to be in motion with us, but they need somebody to create the space for them to do that. Will the faith that we have in a higher vibration that's supposed to be for all, will the faith that we embody, will the faith that we say we profess, will the faith that we confess, will the faith that we proclaim, will that faith make room for that person? When we're driving, we don't have an opportunity to ask the person, wait a minute, are you a Christian? Wait a minute, are you transgender? Wait a minute, are you gay? Wait a minute, are you Black? Wait a minute, are you non-Hispanic? We don't have time to ask those questions. And even if we did, it does not matter. It makes no difference at all. There is a person who longs to be on a journey where we are headed, which is to a higher vibration, a higher level of understanding. Are we willing to make room for that person, regardless of what that means? Regardless of whether it means I got to speed up, regardless of whether that means I got to slow down, which then endangers me, regardless of whether that means that I've got to shift to another lane for such a time as this, for them to make sure that they get in safely. Is our faith in whatever it is that we believe, is it big enough to ask no questions, but simply to make room? Are we willing to become what this person needs us to be? In this case, the person needs us to be one. First of all, the person needs us to be a noticer. I've got to be paying attention to the fact that someone is trying to merge on the highway. I cannot do that if I'm only thinking about myself. If I'm only thinking about my destination, if I'm only thinking about my music, if I'm only thinking about my conversation that I'm having on the phone, through my car, if I'm only focused on me, I'm not paying attention to the fact that somebody else is trying to get into the space that I'm in. So first of all, if in order for us to say that we're going to have a faith that's for all, a faith that makes room for everybody, a faith that is not contingent upon denomination, a faith that is not contingent upon any set rules and regulations and indoctrination, it's a faith that says all are welcome. Because anybody who desires to be in this lane, on this journey, on this highway, you deserve it. Like, you in the car just like everybody else. You're exercising your transportation skills just like everybody else. Am I paying attention to the fact that you are trying to get in on this space that I didn't even create? It doesn't belong to me. It's not mine. It's here for all of us to utilize for the same purpose, to get to our destination. I don't even know where you're going. You don't know where I'm going. Again, that's not even the question. It doesn't matter whether you're going to Buddha, to Nirvana, whether you're going to heaven, whether you're going to whatever plane it is that you're trying to get to. Some people might be destined to go to hell. It makes me know, never mind. You still have a right to enter this space to reach whatever that destination is, and it's not mine to question. It's mine to make room for you. whatever that means. And so do we have a faith that will give us that gives us the freedom and the flexibility to notice other people? Or are we only concerned about those people who believe what we believe? I was in a conversation not too long ago. It was a conversation about the evolution of our relationship. So this was this person that I had met in a movement space like years and years and years ago. I'm saying years and years and years when I first moved here. So I moved here in 15. So things probably jumped off for me really, really strongly in 16, where I'm trying to do this work. I'm out and about in the community. I'm showing up in political spaces and faith spaces. I'm just doing the work. And there were conversations that I had with people who did not agree with me. And so the conversations at many times became contentious. Not because we were mad at each other, because we really didn't even know each other, but we were at odds on the issues that we were there to articulate and to fight. We were not on the same page. And so because of that, there were some feelings that got involved where the other person looked at me and declared that I must be a lesbian. No, they didn't even call me a lesbian. They called me a dyke. And do we use... Some people embrace that word, some people don't, but the way I heard it was meant to be derogatory. And I'm like, what? No. And so they had this whole, like, all of these feelings that they had because I dared to question their theology. I dared to question, are you really who God is calling you to be? How can you tell me that you are a Christian? How can you tell me you are a pastor? Can you tell me that you are this lover, that love is your religion, when people who are LGBTQ, you say, don't have any space in the church that you go to? Like, you won't even allow them to come in. Well, you don't allow them to come in, but once you find out they are there, you treat them a certain kind of way. And so because we were having this conversation, they exacted upon me all of these feelings and emotions that made them say, I don't like you. I don't like you. I don't want to be around you. I don't want to talk to you. I can't stand you. And now time has passed. We have been in we've had other opportunities to engage in conversation, and we've taken the time to say, we need to be able to work together, like, because we share so many of the same intersecting identities that are being directly impacted by this work in the same way. Like, we're basically fighting the same fight. We're arguing over distractions. We need to get ourselves together. So we've decided to push past those issues that had us at odds with each other in order for us to see a bigger picture. And so now when we talk, this particular person has said, yeah, Denise, I have no problem with you now, but my friends still do. My friends don't even want to hear your name. My friends would never even share space with you because they've already decided, based on what they believed years ago, they've already decided that this is who you are. And so now they have nothing for you. And I really believe that many of us are exercising and embodying that kind of faith, where if you are not Jehovah's Witness, if you are not Christian, if you're not Church of God in Christ, if you're not Assemblies of God, if you're not Catholic, if you're not Jewish, if you're not, then I don't even notice you. My eyes are not even, I'm not even willing to see, to broaden my scope, to pay attention to the fact that you might be trying to get in this lane with me. I'm not even noticing. And so this particular sign asks us, this traffic sign asks us to consider whether or not we are willing to be faithful noticers. That it's not my concern of where your destination is. It's not my concern where I'm not asking those questions about who you are, who you love, where you going. I'm just here to create space for you so that wherever your destination is, that we can both arrive to our respective destinations safely. Because I'm going to make sure that I protect myself, and I'm going to make sure that I protect you too, because I'm driving for the entire world. The entire road. And the highway. I'm believing for the whole of creation. Another thing, that if we're going to be all things to all people, like Paul said, he wants to do it because he's trying to convert people to Christianity. I'm asking us, can we have a faith that serves all people? Not because I want you to be converted to my faith, but because I want to make space for your faith. So whatever it is that you need to be faithful in your understanding, then I want to help and support you in getting there. I want to honor it. I want to celebrate it. I want to come alongside it. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it. Doesn't mean I have to believe it. What I believe in is you. What I believe in is your humanity. What I believe in is your right to decide for yourself the destination that you want to reach. That's your right. And that's what I want to make sure I'm making room for you to have control over your body. Now, we can talk about what happens when people are not paying attention. I'm not noticing you, and you got to get over. And if I don't let you over, if I don't speed up, slow down, or move over, now we're about to collide. We can't both be in the same lane at the same time. No, we can't. Somebody has to make room, or else we're going to collide. And that collision can be life-threatening. So being willing to notice that somebody else needs a space and being willing to create that space is what I'm asking us to consider. And in part of considering whether the paying attention to the person that's coming along, I've also got to decide for myself, what am I willing to do? Am I willing to speed up? Am I willing to slow down? Am I willing to move over? Or am I willing to get the person? I want to see the person in a bind. Y'all, I need to confess something. There are times when I'm on the highway and I can see that the person is trying to get over. And I know that I'm the reason they can't get over, but they speeding. Like, I saw them coming from the back. They trying to zip and zoom, and they trying to speed. They trying to go somewhere. They trying to bully me on the road, and they trying to control me. And I'll say, no, I'll play this little game. Oh, so you think you finna get in front of me? Like, you driving recklessly, and you want me to give you permission to drive recklessly? I'm not gonna do it. So I see you trying to get up. I'm gonna speed up so you can. I see you trying to, I know that you need me to move over so you can move over because you're trying to go so fast. And sometimes I won't. I will not. And I'm not trying I'm not trying to create a crash. I'm just saying to you, you don't get to bully people on this highway. I confess that I do that sometimes. But what I do not do is what I see some people doing, is that you notice that somebody's coming over and you refuse to give them the space. And now you know that they are in a bind because their lane is going to run out. This little bit of arrow that they have is sooner or later, they have to, or else they're going to have to stop because they can no longer keep going. You need to get out of their way. Susanna says, I block crazy drivers all the time, so I'm not alone. Let me go back up and get this message from Lo. In Islam, the concept is called, is it taqiyya? To become whatever you want me to be, to convert you. But you keep going back to this, I'm doing it only to convert you. I'm asking us to consider being what other people need us to be to help them get to where they want to go. I'm not trying to convert you. I'm not trying to change you. I'm not trying to bring you over to my side. I'm not trying to persuade you. I want you to be whoever it is that you want to be. How can I help you be the very best version of yourself? That's what I'm asking us to consider when I say faith for all, when I say become who people need to be. So Paul says, yes, I will. If you are one who's under the law, I will become one under the law. If you are one who is without the law, I will become one who is out without the law. I will do all of those things so that I can get what I want from you. And I'm saying, let's drop that piece. Why do we want to get something from other folks? And so then there's this other sign, though, that I was thinking about. How about this sign? This sign that says you can get in. This is the sign where I'm like, okay, let's think about this. This is the sign where you're merging, but you're not going to get in my lane. You got your own lane. You're coming onto the highway, and I don't have to worry about getting over. I don't have to worry about going faster. I don't have to worry about slowing down. I'm going to pay attention to the fact that you're coming on. I'm noticing you coming onto the highway, but we can both keep going without any kind of interaction at all. Lo says, you are asking for understanding. I'm asking for understanding. On some level, I think I am. I'm asking you to understand that other people have the right to believe what they want to believe. They have a right to govern themselves according to their own convictions, and their convictions don't have to align themselves with mine. I am asking us to understand that. But I don't think I'm asking us to understand on the level where we say, I get it. Like, there are some things that people believe that I just don't get. Like, I don't understand how it works. I don't understand, like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, I don't understand people and dogs. I don't. I'm working on it, but I do not understand people and pets. It's not just dogs, it's pets. I read this sign the other day. It was a bumper sticker on a person's car, and it said, my kids have 4 legs. That's what they said. My kids have 4 legs. And I'm like, what? So your pets are your children? Like, how is that possible? So I've seen people with pets and the pets lick them in their face. I've seen people talk about how much money they have to spend on like veterinary fees. Like, I've got to pay, like somebody was paying to get the teeth cleaned. Somebody was paying to get a teeth pulled. Somebody was paying for some medication for some worms. Like spending money. I was watching where they talked about insurance for pets. I'm helping people get housing, and there's a pet rent that you have to. And I'm like, I do not understand how we got to this point where pets are like treated like humans. Like, I do not understand that. And yet, when I see people with their pets, when I hear stories about people talking about how they got their pet when maybe something tragic happened, or I hear people tell the stories about how their pet is so important to them because it's the only thing left from their partnership. Their partner is now dead, and the only thing that reminds them of the joys and the time together, the time they spent together, is this pet that they shared. And the pet is so significant. And when I watch my mama with this pet that my neighbor has, there's no doubt in my mind that this pet brings joy to her life, that this pet is like a part of her. Like, she tells, when she writes me now, when she sends me text now, she talks about Levi, that's Dwayne's dog, and how Levi sleeps in the bed with her, and how Levi comes to get her in the morning, and how Levi, like, it's not lost on me that these pets mean this. I mean, they mean the world to people. But I don't understand it. And yet I'm working to make sure that we have snacks for the pet when my mama comes home so she can feed the pet. I'm making sure that my clients get the emotional support documentation that they need so that their pets can stay with them when they are being housed. I'm doing all of that even though I don't get it. So on some level, I'm saying, yes, let us have an understanding that says to us, we want people to be who they are, and we want them to, we want to understand the humanity that they carry. And can we make space for them when we don't understand? Can that be okay too? So yeah, understanding does absolutely play a role. I also was thinking about this as we were talking about the highway. Because this happened to me today where I'm noticing that a person needs to get in, I need to get over. I barely have enough room to get over because the person in front of me is going too slow. So I need to get over again because this person is going too slow and I'm moving kind of fast because I'm still going 75. That's the speed limit. I'm not speeding. That's the speed limit. And so now I got to get over even up to a whole nother lane. But really, in order for me to make my exit, I got to get back in the lane that I was first in. So I got to return to my center because my center is this right lane way over here. But I've had to do all of this to create space for you. I'm inconveniencing myself, yes, but I'm believing that it's going to be, I got time. I can make it back over here. So this return to, so I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone to make room for you, understanding that I'm able to regain my level of comfort to get to where I need to go. It's okay. I'm only making room for you. I'm only inconveniencing myself enough to keep you safe. And then I'm going to get back in my lane because remember, my goal is my safety too. And so how many of us are willing to, how many of us does our faith make room for other folks to inconvenience us? For other folks to make us uncomfortable in what we believe and what we think and what's going on in our own selves, knowing that just because I'm uncomfortable doesn't mean that I have to give up anything. I can make sure that we all stay safe even after this season of discomfort, which isn't going to last forever. I've got to be willing to be uncomfortable. And some of us in our faith, we're not willing to be uncomfortable. We're not willing to be challenged in what it is that we believe. So then whose faith, if it's only a faith that makes me and those who believe like me comfortable, can you really tout it as being a faith for all people? I see you, Lo. Can we really tout that? And so that's the question that I'm asking. Like, who is our faith for? When we talking about showing up as a faithful person, who does our faith include? Who are we willing to allow it to include? And if we allow our faith to include other people, then we got to be careful, those of us who legislate on behalf of other people, those of us who advocate on behalf of other people, those of us who activate on behalf, irritate on behalf of other people. We got to be careful that we are not motivated by our own narrow-minded sense of our personal faith. But that we have to have a faith that says, wait a minute, I got to make sure that what we are legislating, what we are advocating, what we are activating for is broad enough to include everybody with their complexities and with their multifacetedness. So how much am I willing to expand within my own faith to reach beyond the borders of my doctrine, my indoctrination, to embrace somebody who doesn't believe or think or see the same way, who doesn't have the same end in mind, and isn't even willing to be converted. Now, there are some people we will convert along the way. Don't get me wrong. I feel you on that, Lo. Some people are going to be converted. But that's not the goal, and that's not the mission, not the one that I'm asking us to consider. I'm asking us to consider embodying. And somebody asked me, what does it mean to embody? And so what it means to embody is to give a presence to something that's not tangible. So when we talk about social justice, when we talk about diversity, when we talk about equity, when we talk about inclusion, when we talk about justice, those are spaces that are spiritual. These are abstracts. Like I can't touch justice. I can't grab hold to it. I can't touch diversity, but I can embody it, meaning that I can show up in the space and demonstrate it. I can show up in the space and create it for folks. And so to embody it means that I'm going to give it a presence. I'm going to give it a physical, touchable, perceptible. You can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it because it's coming through me. That is what it means to embody. Otherwise, you can't know it. You can't know that it's there. You can feel it, but you can't know it. When I embody it, it becomes real. So Susanna says, I appreciate how you give me space to be here. Thank you for that. I hope so. I hope so. I really feel like that is my mission in life, is to create space for all people who believe whatever it is they want to believe, who love whoever it is they want to love, who have been labeled and identified by all kinds of systems in this world. Where can we go to be celebrated? Because we all need to be celebrated. We all need to be honored. And that comes from me not finding that space when I was growing up all the time. I know where it comes from. And so that's what I want to do. And so that's the question that's on the table as we prepare to leave on tonight, is about how are we embodying, how does our faith show up in us, so that when we walk into a room as a faithful person, how does that faith with which we walk into the room, how does it reach out and expand to pull everybody in, regardless of whatever difference it is that we can name? And I don't care what the difference is. It's so many labels. And I said the other day that I'm so sick of these labels. I wish we didn't have the label. But then somebody pushed back on me and said, no, I want you to see my blackness. I'm like, yeah, I get that. I'm just saying, I don't want you to determine my worth based on my blackness. And I think that that's what the label signifies or indicates for you to do. So can we find a way to live our faith so that it encompasses all? Faith for all. That is what the subject matter was for tonight. And y'all tell me what y'all think. Keep talking to me. Send me a note. Call me on the phone. Send me a message. Shoot me an email. I'm right here. And I'll be right back here again on next week, 7:00, same time, same place, for another conversation about faith at the intersection of social justice, brought to you by Just Talk Consulting, where we've got to learn how to live and love differently. See you next week.